The blue dog is barking this morning. We have a very special guest on, Zack Mullock, who is the mayor of Cape May, New Jersey, and is the Democratic candidate for New Jersey's competitive second congressional district. Thank you for joining us, Mayor.
Evan, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. How's the weather in Cape May right now? Looks good.
Everything's great. It's always beautiful. It's always sunny in Cape May. That's for sure. Locally we call it the Cape May bubble. The Delaware Bay kind of pushes all those storms. Although I have to say we did get a little rain last night, but typically it happens that night. You still have a nice beach day.
Now, just to clarify for any viewers who might not be aware, the mayor and the government does not control the weather, right?
There's some rumors, but I can't tell you everything, Evan. But no, we don't control the weather.
No, I just had asked, but it looks like it's better
All right.
down by you than it is by me. So I'm a little jealous right now, but maybe that's a reason why people need to vote for the Cape May candidate.
That's right. That's right. We bring good weather with us. So
Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about. So you've been the mayor for Cape May for 2 terms. So how far into your second term are you right now?
I'm only in the second year. So I've been on city council for 8 years and been mayor for six. And I've loved it. It truly. I live in downtown Cape May with my wife and our three kids, and things in Cape May are amazing. Honestly, we've worked really hard to get things in a way that government is functioning well and working together, and it is. And um, I'm proud of that because we did that by bringing a lot of different people together to make sure that we're working on the same goals. And sometimes that means compromise, and sometimes that means putting some of your own goals further toward the back of the list. And that's okay with me because we're doing so many other good things. And in Cape May, right now we're building a new police station. We've built a new fire station. We're building a new desalinization plant. We have a desal plant for our water plant, um, and and all kinds of awesome, smaller projects, whether it be ADA projects, accessibility at our parks and all around our community, making it a walk friendly town, which it really is. And some of those projects have been just so um, amazing. So things are so good in Cape May, but I look at it federally and feel like, okay, it's almost the opposite.
Right. So I wanted to ask a little bit about how Jeff Van Drew's leadership, and I put it in quotes, has negatively
Mhm.
impacted maybe not your community or maybe your community, but some of the communities around you. Because South Jersey's second district is a huge district geographically. All the districts have about 700,000 people, give or take. What do you see that could be better from the federal government?
Well, as you were saying, our district is actually larger than the state of Delaware. So geographically speaking, it's very large. We have three of the poorest counties in the state. All three are here in this district. And I think even the fifth poorest is in the district as well. So it is. We have a high population of veterans, and we have a high population of retirees. Um, and so many of these cuts, especially from the big beautiful bill, which, as you know, passed by one vote, are truly affecting this area. And now I'll say smartly, that a lot of those cuts are happening after this midterm November election. Um, but people are already feeling it. They're feeling the results of this economy. And it's even, Evan, this is like not so big maybe on the national level, but I heard Congressman Van Drew on the Fox just the other day talking about how wonderful these tariffs are on 50% renewed tariffs on Canada, you know supposedly in relation to the wildfires. I look at that and think, hey, I mean, the consumers are the ones that are paying that tariff, number one, and number two, tourism is our largest industry in South Jersey. And Canadian tourism represents almost 10% of our tourism. Last year, that was down 60%. And so, and I ask for what reason? Because South Jersey is very much about small business. And, ask small businesses how much 10% of their, business is worth to them. And for a lot of them, that is their profit. So I mean, it's such a broad area of things that are people are hurting. Obviously, the cuts to the VA and the amount of employees that the VA has affects a lot of our veterans here in South Jersey. And I mean, getting into the obviously the cost of living, which is across the country, but certainly hurts those areas that are most depressed, like the three poorest counties in the state here in South Jersey.
Well, Congressman Lo Biondo, who was the representative before Jeff Van Drew, who, in my opinion, I think he was a very good congressman. He had actually said,
Yeah,
right after Hurricane Sandy that the South Jersey economy, particularly in your county, is very reliant on the summer season, and
right.
and of course, as you and I both know, there are a lot of advertisements in your neck of the woods that are in French because you have people coming from Quebec
Yeah,
to
that's
Wally
right.
and
Yeah,
south and maybe a little north.
you've done your research, Evan. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I've been to Cape May many times. I don't remember if I've seen those French ads. I never took a French class in my life. Don't tell anyone except people now know. But National Review, I subscribe to National Review. They're a conservative publication. They were just bashing these tariffs because, as you have rightly stated, we pay for it. You could make the argument that it makes sense to have tariffs on China, but Canada,
Mhm.
especially when
Yeah.
this economy in South Jersey is reliant on the Canadian tourism
Hmm.
coming down
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. No, it makes no, and you know what, you hit the nail on the head, and Frank Lobiondo, Congressman Lobiondo, again, like you said, a Republican, but one that had the respect of everybody. He spoke to everyone. He always faced the public and stated his reasons for his votes. That obviously not every Democrat agreed with, but at least you understood where he stood. And and he was very pro union. He was very pro worker. He fought extremely hard for funding for shore communities and things like that in regards to beach replenishment. Which I know a lot of people who are in the interior of the state maybe don't see that as a big issue, but the protection of our coastline is going to be such an important issue in regards to climate change and things like that are occurring. And we have a representative who has gone back and forth as to whether that science, those facts, actually exist. And you know, Lobiondo, that was never a discussion. And I think that there's a big difference between where he stood and the extremism that we're experiencing today. And really, that's one of the reasons I decided to run was it's so extreme from what actually represents South Jersey.
And it also comes to me, in my view, it seems opportunistic because before he switched parties, Jeff Andrews' voting record was one that I would imagine would have been similar to mine if I ever had become
Mm.
a congressman. He was a member of the Blue Dog Caucus.
Right, right.
So it just doesn't make any sense that not only did he switch parties, which was already betrayal, but he's not governing as a Lo Biondo Republican or a Chris Christie
Not at all.
Republican. Not at all.
No. And that's not South Jersey. I mean, the truth is, South Jersey has typically voted more Republican than Democrat, but it's voted both ways. And you look at, how Obama did well in South Jersey, it's voted both ways. And South Jersey to me is very pro business. It's I would say pro worker because we have a lot of middle class folks here, um, and it's very pro environment. We truly care about the environment here in South Jersey because of where we're located between the bay and the beach. We have the pine lands, the wetlands, the farmland. It's a very ecologically sensitive area, but that's not being protected by this administration. And I think more and more people are realizing that.
And I get I cringe a little bit when I hear people from Central North Jersey who say that South Jersey is staunchly Republican because that just simply isn't the case.
It isn't. No, and now they want people who are going to compromise and work together. Look, I think I'm sure every place says this to some degree, but people want to see action and they want to see things getting done. And I think that's a result of, hey, when you have three of the poorest counties in the state, you want to see action. You don't want to just hear a lot of words. I'm proud of the work that I've done as mayor in getting things accomplished. But the only way you can do that is by compromising, is by working with other people across the aisle. And frankly, I love doing that. I look at it like you talk about like problem solvers. That is problem solving. What is the issue? What is the root cause, and how can we fix it? And um, how can we work with other people to get to the same solutions? And I think we've done that here in Cape May, and that's what we need to do in DC.
Maybe if DC were a little more like Cape May, we wouldn't be in this mess.
100%, 100%.
So, how do you intend to bring some of that Cape May energy and Cape May spirit to DC? What are some of your ideas and experiences that you have witnessed as mayor that you're going to bring to Washington?
There's got to be more bipartisan ship. There's got to be more bipartisanship for sure. And that seems to have become an ugly word. And I hear from folks in our party who said, no, 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 we've got to play by the game at hand and fight like hell one way or the other. I don't see how that's ever going to work. We're never going to have enough of a majority to just push things through. Now, having said that, there are big changes that need to be made if whoever gets into Congress, and I hope to be a part of those changes. And some of those are quick, restoring ACA subsidies, um, restoring, there's even solar renewable energy credit subsidies and things like that. I mean, there are immediate actions that we should be taking right away. So I'm not talking about anything small. I think we need to take bold action on energy in regards to solar. I mean, I think we need to be pushing that like heck. And frankly, South Jersey should be manufacturing solar. The biggest ingredient in a solar panel is sand. We have abundance of sand, and we have a manufacturing history here in South Jersey that I think we really should be pushing. Um, but all of that takes compromise. And even if there is some blue wave that you keep hearing about, there's still not going to be some super majority. And so I just think we need people who are willing to work together to get things done. As simple as that sounds, that is what works in government.
Especially when, regardless of how it turns out in the midterms, you're going to have a Republican or someone who claims to be a Republican in the White House. Now,
Right.
you mentioned ACA subsidies, and I think that's incredibly important because I do
Hmm.
believe and I know that one of the reasons why the Democrats took back the House so much in 2018 was because they campaigned on health care. Jeff Van Drew could have used his relationship with President Trump to maybe undo some of the ACA subsidy cuts or Medicaid cuts. He did nothing.
Nothing. And he promised that he wouldn't touch Medicare and Medicaid to anyone he would talk to. Anyone who asked about Medicare and Medicaid, we won't touch it. And then they gutted it. It just, to me, how do you make that change to the public when you say that every time you speak that you won't touch it, and then you not only touch it, you literally cut $880 billion out of it. So it's such an incredible flip flop, that I just don't know how you explain it, and he clearly hasn't. I guess the only thing that is blamed is immigrants, which seems to be blamed for everything right now. But it's for South Jersey, it's devastating. I mean, it's going to be hurting so many people, and that is one of the things that if I got into Congress, we will be reversing immediately.
Well, it's a betrayal of the people of South Jersey, especially since you have stated that we have the three poorest counties in the district. And if you got the three poorest counties, I'd imagine you've got a lot of Medicaid people on Medicaid.
And, I just had a meeting with a gentleman who represents the disabilities community, and you know, it, it was striking what he was bringing to my attention too. Was he was talking about the Olmstead Act and how that's under attack, which is this is allowing people to live at home with their disability rather than being institutionalized. Um, and their reliance on Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP benefits, all of which were cut. And to think, how is it that these are the communities that are under attack right now? And honestly, it breaks my heart. I mean, it really, really does. And it just reminds you of how important these elections are because there are people out there that are truly suffering that need a fighter and an advocate. And by the way, Evan, as I've gone through this campaign, I've realized more and more that the promises that I'm making are not strong. They are not grandiose. I get closer and closer to making our campaign slogan simply a return to normalcy. Because what am I talking about? I'm talking about really just returning to what has worked in our past. Restoring ACA benefits, just simply restoring, getting rid of these cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, protecting Social Security, protecting civil rights, things that we've done in our past and have worked for many, many decades, and not huge promises after that. But I think doing those things would make such a major difference.
Absolutely, and you also have to adapt it for the 21st century, particularly now in this era of AI and solar and wind. I mean, there's just so many aspects that were not relevant when this was the last time this seat was very competitive was in 2020. And it's been a
Right.
lifetime politically, technologically speaking. So I completely concur with what you're saying.
But you do bring up something, Evan, too, that, my opponent's been in office for 43 years, all in South Jersey. And it, I mean, it's time. Number one, it's time. It's time for a change, not just any change. I'm not just change for change's sake. I mean, we have a nominee for Congress in South Jersey that is, you can see what I've done in Cape May. And it's been good. It's been working with other people. It's not some extreme agenda. And I think we have an excellent opportunity to change it. But I talk about age for a second too, because big tech is a major issue moving forward that you just mentioned. And it includes AI, it includes data centers, it includes all these different things. But we are so far behind in our laws on big tech that, and I think a lot of it is a lot of these Congress people don't truly understand a lot of the technology. And frankly, I'm no expert either. I would rely on experts to help me craft legislation. But I think what I do know is like I said, I have a 12, 10, and 7-year-old child. All of them have an algorithm sitting there monitoring what they're doing, feeding them different things. And I have that uncle that a lot of different people, who has very extreme views, very different than my views. He's getting a very different view of the world from his computer than I'm getting. And I question, are we ever going to come together as a country is if we allow these things to occur? And it also gets into plagiarism. It gets into intellectual property theft. What is AI? AI is basically just copying our work without any credit, without any financial compensation. Musicians, artists, authors, all, comedians, um, just basically having their work stolen and without any credit due.
Right, and that was a problem even before AI really came onto the scenes because there was a campaign called, oh, I don't remember what it was now, but basically it was to allow artists to get some portion of money every time their song was played on the radio.
Yeah,
Because,
right,
contrary to popular belief, musicians, artists are not rich and famous. A lot of them don't strive to
right.
be rich and famous. They just want to make a difference, share their work. They're happy in the shoes they're wearing, but they want to be recognized monetarily for what they're doing. And I think that's really
Some
important.
royalty. Yeah, and Evan, if you stole someone's work and did something with it, you'd be in trouble.
Hmm.
But the largest corporations in the world are actively doing it without any compensation, without any um, with total disregard. And I just feel like, why are we allowing that to happen?
Right. It makes no sense. But
Oh,
I,
and by the way, Donald Trump had some concerns. I don't know. You probably read that he even wanted to see some amount of money go back to the public in regards to AI. And I think there's certain things where, you know, again, when I talk about compromise, I really mean it. Where are the things that we can work on together? Trump at one point talked about a 10% cap on credit cards.
mhm.
Let's do it. I mean, there are so many middle class families struggling with extremely high interest rates that are crushing them and keep them on a cycle of debt they can never get out of.
Right.
Yeah.
The interest rates are out of control. And actually, surprisingly, that's one of the few things or one of the few times where I didn't hear Jeff Andrews say, I support President Trump's efforts or the idea
It's so
of
true.
capping the credit card debt. I mean, whether it's the tariffs,
Yeah.
which he says are great for the country and they're not, the Medicaid cuts,
Right.
Jeff Andrews is out of touch with the working class and the working poor.
100%.
Hmm. So, what are some of your proposals or ideas when you get to Congress that are going to help the district from Salem, Penns Grove, Atlantic City,
Mm.
Vineland, just all over? Because it's a huge district, as you stated.
Not only is it huge too, but it is so diverse. You have several different industries that are so important. Obviously, healthcare, which is so important in so many areas, but we have the casino industry. We have the kind of separate tourism and hospitality industry. We have a lot of farming. We have Cape May has the second largest seaport on the East Coast. For fishing industry, Cape May actually has the nation's only training center for the Coast Guard, right? So we have such a diverse area, and all of them have different needs. I hear it all the time from the folks on the Delaware River and on the Delaware Bay that they are forgotten, compared to the folks on the Atlantic, and frankly, they're right. So the needs are so vast, but we can't forget those that, like you mentioned, out in Salem County and Cumberland County, that I do feel like are left behind often. One of the things in Salem County, of course, they were looking at building some of the wind turbines, which, say what you will about offshore wind, they were very anxious to be getting those good jobs. And I think they were just completely left behind. And if we were going to not do those projects, those jobs should have been worked on to be replaced. And again, could be something with solar or another technology, but they were good paying labor jobs that they're very upset to be losing.
Exactly. And Salem County is, I can't remember, it's either the first or the second poorest county in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah,
And they desperately needed those jobs, especially since it's the least populated county too. And
yeah.
they're talking, there's been talk for many years about putting affordable housing in Salem County. The problem is you need jobs in Salem County.
You need
Opportunity,
jobs.
you need
They
more
that's what they
opportunity.
want. They want jobs. They want jobs and opportunity. They're not looking for handouts. They are hardworking people, but there's not enough opportunity, and that's what we need to provide on a federal level.
Now, what's the reason why that deal fell through?
Well, look, I think this is a time when you could kind of criticize the Democrats, and frankly, the corporations that were involved in that. I have no sympathy for those folks. I think they did a terrible job. I think their communication was awful. I think they tried to force things through on municipalities that they shouldn't have done. They did not work enough with the fishing industry. You know, um, I know those people very well. And, once you had the fishing industry not supporting it, then you had a problem. And they should have been brought in and included in the process 100%. And so you can't be putting these things in areas where that we actively have industry and fishing. And by the way, those people care about the environment. They know that is part of their livelihoods. So there was a way to work this out. And I think, when you had people that were concerned about seeing it on their view, and listen, I'm not as sympathetic to that, but I will say tourism is such a key industry in Cape Met and South Jersey. You can't just ignore that. So I think there were certain changes that could have been made, but it was a complete failure, and it really set it back a long time because, frankly, we need energy right now, and we need good, clean energy right now. But I think it was a total failure.
Right. When there are so many moving parts, but there's not enough communication between the different interests and professions, that's where things can go horribly wrong and no one
You
benefits.
have to bring everybody to the table. You have to bring them to the table, and that didn't happen, and it fell apart.
Hmm. Right. So there are some concerns because it was recently discovered during the last administration, I'm talking at the state level during Murphy's time, that there were people who were not citizens who were registered to vote and some actually did vote. And now your opponent, Jeff Van Drew, is really taking advantage of this situation. What do you make of all of this? Because even though it's not necessarily a federal issue, we have elections all across the country this year. New Jersey, I think, wants to know that whatever happens this year is legit.
Yeah. Well, first off, anybody who's done real research on the air, let me say this first. You can't let this happen. It cannot happen. So that's number one, and do everything possible to make sure that that never happens again. You can't let it happen. But number two, if you do any research on this in any real way, there's just not a problem on a percentage wise that people would like you to believe. Um, and that's stick to the facts. How many people are actually voting? It's very rare. Anytime it happens, it needs to be stopped and make sure it never happens again. So at 100%, I don't want to hear it from Van Drew. Van Drew has zero credibility in regards to elections. He hired people who are sitting in federal prison right now for voter fraud. And
Hmm.
I so and he hired them to over $100,000. No one on my campaign is making anywhere near that kind of money. So that tells you what was being paid for, and so the person he hired is sitting in federal prison for voter fraud, and that was after he had already been in prison for various issues in regards to elections. So frankly, I don't want to hear it from Van Drew. He has no credibility in that area whatsoever. But it's something that can't happen and should never be allowed to happen. And I think we need to take the steps to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Especially after he voted against certifying the election results for 2020.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, we only have a few minutes, so is there a website that my viewers can go to? And the other question is, what is the best part of your district? I'm not talking just geographically, but what do you admire most about NJ2?
I love the diversity. Um, it's as a person running for Congress, you have to learn about so many different issues. And that's a beautiful thing. And it is the communities. I mean, I know it sounds like a canned answer, but it's true. I get to meet so many good people, and it is often you see a lot of the same people in different communities,
Mm-hmm.
but you meet the people who truly care about their towns, their communities, without looking for any kind of recognition or compensation. They just care. And I getting to meet some of those folks in all different parts of South Jersey has been such a pleasure for me. And it's been a pleasure learning and frankly hearing about the biggest issues that people have that I didn't think about. I didn't know about. Um, but it gives you learn about something that we can fix that. But we just need to get into office. And that gives you that jolt of energy, like, okay, we've got to win because we can make the changes that would truly help these people. And I think, sometimes you hear something, you're like, man, that's going to be a tough one to change. But I will say, most of the time, I hear things that you say, that is not a big ask. And it's something that we can do that can change this person's life. And that has been, again, a shot in the arm to let's win this thing.
Well, if you're consistently seeing the same faces, that means you're getting out there and talking to
Yeah,
others.
that's right.
All right. And what's the website?
www.molochforcongress.com.
ZackMullockForCongress.com?
Just Moloch for Congress.
Oh, okay. All right. I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
So thank you for refreshing
yeah,
my.
yeah. I try to keep it a little shorter, Evan.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah, I needed to hear that because I'm going to make a donation for myself.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank
Thank
you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Evan, thanks a lot. Anytime would be glad to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you.